account, Christ reminds us that we're all made in His image. And there's a wonderful line, verse 40, "Inasmuch as you did it to one of these, the least, my brethren, you did it to me." That clearly illustrates Christ's point. I'd like to further unpack this point, and I'd like to use an example from the Old Testament of Rahab from the book of Joshua to do so. Although we know the story of Rahab, I'd like to highlight some points so that we more clearly make the connection between her and today's gospel. Before the book of Joshua introduces Rahab, we read that Joshua, having been an assistant to Moses, is taking over for Moses. He's communicating with God, caring for the Ark of the Covenant, taking care of God's people, and warning those living outside of the law that they need to change their ways. The first task given to Joshua regarding those living outside of God's law is to take back the land of Jericho. When we read this account, we should pay special attention to the fact that God didn't just send a plague to destroy the inhabitants of the city and allow His people to enter. Instead, He had His people work toward accomplishing God's work. And I'd just like to point out that Joshua, a man chosen by God, still had to work for the glory of God. He didn't have it easy, and neither do we. So we shouldn't be frustrated when our prayers aren't answered immediately or how we think they should. But back to Joshua. His first task was to take back Jericho, and the first step he took to overtaking the city was to gather intelligence. And this essential step is a top priority in those engaging in missions like Joshua's. In chapter 2 of the book, we're told that Joshua sent 2 spies to gather information about the city, its strengths and its weaknesses. And this is where we meet Rahab. The 2 spies entered into Rahab's house and lodged there. And this is a wise move on the part of the spies, because Rahab was a harlot. So it wasn't uncommon for a variety of different men to be coming in and going out of her house, and these spies knew they wouldn't raise any suspicion being inside there. Rahab was a harlot, so she was accustomed to being used. Her body was constantly used for money, and now her house was being used to gather intelligence. It would probably be very hard for someone to trust a person in her profession, because one might be inclined to second guess her intentions. But the spies did end up trusting Rahab. She revealed to them her love of God, fear of His judgment, and her desire to draw near to Him. So the spies trusted Rahab, and she protected them. In return for her protection and help, they rescued her and her household when they overtook the city. And this is the connection I'd like to make with today's reading. Today we heard that we should be caring for all of those made in God's image and likeness, because in doing so, we're caring for Him. By caring for the least of His brethren, we're caring for Him. Oftentimes this parable conjures up images for us that turn us into Pharisees, about whom we read just 2 weeks ago. We may think, well, I go to the hospital when someone I know is sick. I donate my clothes to St. Martin and St. John's Closet. I bring in cans of food for food drives and serve meals on Thanksgiving. But that doesn't mean we're doing things for the least of Christ's brethren. We can use the right words to display ourselves in the best light, but are we being honest with ourselves? And are we asking, are those things enough? Could we take time to look at a harlot and find out that she loves God? Would we be willing to accept that a harlot could help us do God's will? Christ said, I was hungry. When we recall how we fed the hungry, does that include feeding the drunk guy with the tattoo sleeves who is standing outside the liquor store? Or do we somehow convince ourselves that He'd use a slice of pizza to get more beer? Lord, have mercy. When we look at people in need, do we see Christ in whose image they're made? Do we have the ability or even the desire to take off the glasses that we wear that only allow us to see the pink-haired girl with black nail polish and lipstick vaping and wondering, why does she do that to herself? Or can we look at her instead as someone who could draw us nearer to God? When I read the story of Rahab and that she was a harlot, I can't imagine asking the harlot for help. But the men Joshua sent to complete the work of the Lord, They saw her as a person. They saw her made in the image of God, and they stayed at her house. And when they saved her city, when her city was destroyed, they saved her. Is our faith strong enough to save a harlot? This gospel is really comforting and paint a picture of it with people who look and act as we do. But it's really convicting when we ask ourselves the real question Christ is asking. Did you help the least of my brethren? And when we think about those people that are not the ones related to us through looks, interests, or social class, that instead are the outcasts of society, how do we answer that question? And more importantly, how will that question be answered when Christ asks us, sitting on his judgment seat? And just to be clear, we don't do acts of mercy because we're trying to earn our way into the kingdom of heaven. Instead, we do these things because we love God, and these things are an expression of love. If we're doing them just to put a check in the box, then we miss the whole point. Feed the hungry, clothe the naked, visit the shut-ins, and do it with love. Do it with love because you love God, and these are the least of God's brethren. Lord, we ask you to grant us the strength to see you in all people, so that we may serve you in all people. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.